Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Oh my God. Why me?
Eggsy, I saw in you what someone once saw in me. Something that can't be taught. The makings of a Kingsman. Being a Kingsman is more than the clothing we wear or the weapons we bear. It's about being willing to sacrifice for the greater good. I hope you're ready for what comes next.
What are we supposed to do now?
We follow the Doomsday Protocol.
Make you want to slap your mama right there, boy.
Today marks the beginning of a new age. Wait, I'm going to show you.
I've got a bit of a save the world situation here.
Welcome to Statesman.
Of your American cousins.
Lasso.
Whatever. Very American.
Fuck yeah. Manners maketh a man.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers premium review episode of Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
And as always, we are going to treat our reviews in two separate parts, non-spoiler, and then we'll give our score, and then we'll go into our spoiler little Easter egg section that we talk about where we get into specifics of the film. So Jay, you and you went together to see this film, which is a rare thing. We actually don't normally get to go together.
Not too often.
And we
had some drama.
We had a bit of a mishap. So we get there. Me and Lauren were late. Like we were like almost 15 minutes late. And we come in during the trailers, and we sit down, and halfway through one of the trailers,
Red Sparrow, the Jennifer Lawrence movie that comes out next year.
Yeah, we didn't do a trailer. We're not doing a trailer park on that this week because
It's just a teaser. There's nothing really to talk about.
and it's Black Widow. It's the story of Black Widow, just literally put into a different film.
I feel bad for ScarJo.
Yeah, feel bad for Marvel because they should be making a Black Widow film when they aren't.
They should.
But you know, we'll get some plenty of female action next year. With Tomb Raider, that looks awesome. We got
Tomb Raider.
Atomic Blonde this year, so you know, female action
I'm
stars.
excited. I
are
love
coming.
it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so the projector cuts out, and it's almost a half hour before anybody comes into the theater to say like, all right, well, it's not going to be working, so come get your passes and head on home.
And apparently there was a guy in there the whole time, and he was like waiting for word from like somebody else.
And
I
that
guess.
dude almost got the shit beat out of him by some other dude.
This guy was pissed.
Yeah, so some dude got on the phone with, I guess, AMC Theaters, like their customer service. I was talking to them, and they got up, and he was told to go find the manager. He gets up to go find the manager and finds this kid, just this poor kid, just standing there.
Yeah.
And he was just waiting for his orders, waiting to be told what to do and everything like that. And that dude flipped the fuck out on him. He's like, thanks for wasting my fucking time, you little shit. And I was like, oh man, that poor kid. So we ended up not getting to see it.
I mean, granted, we were all, I mean, the whole theater was sitting there for 30 minutes.
A half hour, yeah.
And nothing. I mean, like literally nothing, just black screen.
So we eventually get up, and we go to get our free passes. That line was massive, so we decided to sit at the bar and have a couple drinks. Me and my wife were trying to figure out when we would have time to see this week so we can get the review in tonight. And there was an 8:15 showing that was there. And the only things left were the very front row, so you could crane your neck, which you guys don't like to do, but I don't mind it. I actually.
Well, with those chairs,
right? They
for
were
some odd reason they're not as far up close to the screen,
exactly,
and they lounge back. So
we bought wheelchair accessible, and I thought they were just handicap chairs. I didn't realize that there was no chair there at all.
It makes sense.
So my choice was to either sit on the floor or go sit in the front row. So I ended up sitting in the front row, and
I don't blame you.
I had a good time with the film, seeing it from there. And it was nice because it's not like there's no distraction when you're in the front row. You don't see what anybody else is doing. You don't see people playing on your cell phones. It's just you and the screen.
In that regard,
total
you're right.
immersion.
Sure.
It was good.
Sure. The only thing is like your eyes are like wandering a lot from like the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. You're trying to like pick up on every little nuance and things.
Now the film is long. The reason we like to go to 7
Very.
o'clock showings is because we can get home by 9:30, 10 o'clock. We didn't get home till almost 11:30 because the film started at 8:15, and then there was at least 25 minutes of trailers, and then the film starts.
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
2 hours and 21 minutes after that. Then it was
Yeah.
done. And then by the time we got home, Lauren like passed right the fuck out. But 2 hours and 21 minutes, is that a runtime you feel is needed for this film?
100% no.
The first one was 209 minutes. And I felt like that went by pretty quickly.
It went by pretty quickly, but that's the structure of the story.
That's right, yeah. And I think this one,
that's story development and character development, which is all great. Now there's
a lot to fit in this film, though.
There's a lot, but a lot of it didn't even need to be in there. You know, honestly, it was a little much. And
some
I
things
think
were
it
cut
could
in
have been
service
cut.
of other things where I was
I'm
like,
sure.
I would have loved to have seen more about the statesman and maybe a little bit less about Harry. I mean, honestly, I was already introduced to that character. I know who that character is. I would have liked to seen maybe a little bit definitely less of Julianne Moore's Poppy. I could have done with less of her. And certainly, this is something I
She
thought
was
I'd never
over the
say,
top.
I want less of Elton John. You could have cut a whole lot of Elton John out.
It's kind of true.
And stay tuned for the spoiler aspect of this review if you've seen it to find out about Elton John. So this is the story of, the first one. It is the building of the Kingsman. You know, we get to enter the world with Eggsy.
He's a full-on Kingsman now.
That's right.
Yeah. He's just doing his thing.
In the first one, we get introduced.
He's still with the princess.
We get introduced to this world, and it's a lot of fun. It has fun with the spy genre. It has fun with those tropes that come with James Bond films. But it also has like satirical notes about modern society and stuff like that. And it was just an absolute perfect marriage of over the top cartoonish action with satirical elements. And it also just made a great a great film, and it had great characters that you could really get behind. And this one did the same thing, except that entire world they built in the first one is destroyed in the first 20 minutes. It's just absolutely gone. And I like that. I mean, that's ballsy to build a world.
It really is.
And instead of continuing to build on that world, just completely destroy it and then have to build it up again. And they'll do it twice throughout this film, pretty much, which is pretty amazing. And all you're left with, and this isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer, all you're left with is Eggsy, Merlin, and Harry, which we won't talk about Harry too much because that is actually spoilers. I was actually surprised how they ended up bringing him back. And Eggsy has to travel to the United States to meet the statesman to help him out in figuring out who attacked the Kingsmen. And the Kingsmen were attacked by the villainous Poppy, who runs the world's largest drug cartel, and she's also obsessed with 1950s Americana to a disgusting degree.
Yes, very disgusting.
And together with the statesman, Eggsy has to take down Poppy and her organization, but not without uncovering a few moles along the way. And that's really the whole story. But
and once again, like it's riding on the whole world epidemic kind of thing where like they have to save the world. And I don't know. I mean, it's a little ridiculous.
That's the point, though. That's the
fun part about it.
It is paying homage to like that 80s Bond film where every tool, everything he wears is a weapon. They very much did that in James Bond. And
no, yeah, and I'm fine with that.
And they just amp it up to a comedic level to where all the action is extremely cartoonish, and and also what it says a lot of times, like what it says about our society and how even in how different countries are viewed. Like the Kingsmen, they're very gentlemanly. They wear suits, whereas The Statesmen are very cowboy justice, you know, like, and it's,
Oh, yeah.
and it's more of our international presence. Like that's how we're seen internationally and woven into how our secret service organizations work. And I enjoyed that. And overall for the film, I enjoyed the time that I had with the film. I liked how, you know, it started off with us back to the world that we already understand, tears that down, and then takes us to a whole new world that we have to learn now, just like we did in the first one.
Yeah, I really wanted to like it, but I ended up not liking it because it was too long and there was way too much thrown on the screen at me. And I just wanted it to be over with because it was just too much action. There was too much craziness going on. Julianne Moore was in a whole other movie. I mean, I guess you could say she was kind of following in the footsteps of like the kookiness of Samuel L. Jackson's character, but his kind of walked the line better than she did. I mean, she went over
I would
the top.
say that as a villain, I didn't like her that much, and I thought the resolution to her as the villain was a little lackluster.
Right.
Them getting to her was fantastic, but them actually so it was one of those things where they have a great action set piece getting to the main villain, but because the main villain isn't physically threatening in any type of way, their resolution with her is a little muted. But it was kind of the same way for Eggsy and Valentine in the first one, where he has to take on her deadly foe.
Yeah, no, that's true.
To take Valentine out, but he did it in a more spectacular fashion, whereas this was more of a it was a little bit of a letdown in a way. But I mean, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't like it at all. Did you like the first one, Jay?
No, I did like the first one. No, the first one was a surprise. I did not, you know, I didn't expect it to be as good as it is. You know, I really had a good time with it. It was a different twist on the whole spy action genre, and but I think it reeled itself in enough. And it was smart enough, and it was kind of it was played up really well. And I really like Mark Strong, and I like Eggsy's characters.
Mark Strong is my favorite character in both of these films.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely. And you know, it's just this one just.
And it is directed by Matthew
Vaughn.
You
got. I understand this. You know, suspending a sense of disbelief whatever a little bit, but this one was just too much.
Mark Strong finds his way into a lot of Matthew Vaughn's films. He found he was in Kick-Ass. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, he's obviously in both Kingsman now. I wouldn't be surprised to find Mark Strong finding his way into Man of Steel 2, which Matthew Vaughn will be directing Man of Steel 2.
It's very possible.
Scott Snyder is out.
But Mark Strong is great. He's not like a huge celebrity, but he's in a lot of movies and a lot of great movies.
And he plays different characters, but he brings that same like level of charisma to all of them. Like he's
absolutely
very charismatic, and I absolutely love Mark Strong. He's definitely my favorite. And I do love Taron Egerton. I loved his character in the first one. I like how in this one we see him now. It was all about him becoming the gentleman in the other one. We see him living it. We see him embodying it, you know, but still struggling with it because he is a kid from the streets.
Sure.
So, you know, you get to see him going back to his old world at times, like still being
with his
him.
boys.
Right. It's like he never gave up who he was, but he knows how to put on the act when working. And I think that's like a duality I think we all have to have. You know, we all have to be a different person at work than we are at home. And I like that because it's a young man dealing with something that young people like us have to deal with. So, but you just thought this film was too bloated. You know,
I definitely did.
Too much. They tried to fit too much in.
But also, I agree with you. Statesman's characters were very underdeveloped. I think it's a crazy spoiler, but I thought that Channing Tatum would have a little bit more runtime than he did, along with Jeff Bridges. I thought he would have something more to do, but he didn't.
No, I think Jeff Bridges did about as much as I would say Michael Caine did in the first one. I think he did about as much.
And then, you know, with Halle Berry mixed in with like kind of like the American version of Mark Strong's
character. What about Pedro Pascal, who is in 90% of this film?
He played a prominent role in this film.
Yeah, and I think they did a lot to develop his character, but then by the end you realize they really didn't do enough at all. Like they really,
I liked him.
The movie is called Kingsman. It's not called Statesman.
Yes.
So we can't spend too much time with Statesman. We can't build that world too much, because remember, that world is very similar to the Kingsman world. So if you spend too much time developing the Statesman, then you really wind up doing your film an injustice. You wind up making the first film over again, which I could tell throughout this film they were very aware and didn't want to do. They wanted to take elements of that, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to, do it again. They didn't want to do the same thing over again, because remember, this is the same people that aren't afraid to destroy everything they built the first time.
But he did a fine job, I would say.
Yeah. I enjoy him. I haven't seen him do anything as well as he did Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. Like, I haven't seen Narcos, but him as Oberyn Martell is an absolute masterpiece. All right, Jay, are you ready to score this film? You got a score for it?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies where it's just a disappointment. I mean, I didn't have a bad time in the theater, but I didn't really enjoy it. I was kind of let down. I'm just gonna give it a C.
I had a little bit more fun than that. I mean, I do see a lot of the same problems you did see. I did see a bit of a bloated runtime. I do see some lacks in development. But everything I loved about the first one was there again and brought to me in new ways. I still enjoy the characters. I still enjoyed my time with it. I'm going to B+. I think I struggle between a B and a B+. Do I think this is as good as the first one? No, not at all. But it's still really, really, really enjoyable, and I definitely had a lot of fun going to see it. I mean, so
I think you'd be more leaning towards B, because even the first Kingsman, I don't think is like anything more than an A- movie.
Oh no, I think the first one's an A. I fucking
love
it. Yeah,
okay.
I think it turned the I think it turned that type of genre on its head, and it's another comic book that was written by Mark Millar. And God, that guy seems to get everything made into a film. I don't know who his publicist is. I don't know how he does it. But Kick-Ass,
he's getting paid.
So Civil War from Marvel was written by Mark Millar. You also have Kick-Ass, written by Mark Millar. Wanted, written by Mark Millar. And then you have Kingsman, which was written by Mark Millar. And you have a ton. Oh, I'm sorry, Logan, which is loosely based off of Old Man Logan from the comics, written by Mark Millar. Like this, the dude is a prolific comic book writer. So it doesn't surprise me that this came from that mind. But I really enjoyed Kingsman, and I wish Wanted. I would love someone to take another stab at Wanted, actually, because what we got for Wanted was nowhere near as good as the comic book was, and I feel like that comic treats villains the way this treated the spy, the spy genre. That treats like villains in that same type of way, where it kind of turns it on its head a little bit and has a lot of fun with it, and it gets very, very meta at times, the same way that this does. So I would love to see them take another stab at Wanted and maybe do a more true to the comic book form of it. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised that you're as low as a C, because at a B+, that means that our average score right now is a B-. So I feel like that's a little less than it should be, but
nah, I stand behind that.
All right, let's move into our spoilers. So we'll play that spoiler siren.
Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning.
All right, Jay. So just little Easter eggs and things that I found that I thought were really cool. First off, Charlie is back, and he was the main antagonist for Eggsy in the first one, who was someone who was training with him to become a Kingsman, and was Arthur's choice to take Lancelot's place and join the Kingsmen, and he wound up betraying them. And I thought it was funny that
pretty surprising, because he was not in any kind of marketing material, and he popped up in the first opening act.
Well, because you assumed he died, because it
was a good surprise.
In the first one, everyone had that chip in their neck, and when obviously Mark Strong's character of Merlin blew all their heads up, you assume that his head got blew up too.
And they explain it.
They do explain it.
And it makes sense. Yeah, I can roll with that.
He got tased in the neck by Eggsy, and that short circuited his explosive chip, which wound up just blowing off his arm.
I can roll with that.
Which is why we get that awesome scene. He was in the trailer. He's in that scene where he shoots his arm, but they don't show his face.
Right.
But so Charlie's back, and one of the things that I thought was a really cool, interesting Easter egg in the very beginning was he was holding a golden gun, something you missed.
I did miss that.
He was the man with the golden gun. So they're paying homage right there, right up front in the first few minutes of the film to James Bond. I thought that was really cool. Poppy's obsession with the 1950s, it didn't really like come to like 1950s, 60s. It wasn't the same as like
it didn't even come to fruition the way it should have been. And if she
Right.
was so nostalgic with the 50s, why Elton John? Why couldn't they get somebody?
I think it was supposed to be like this
what other different star.
this bastardization of Americana. Is what it was like supposed to be, because remember she's running like a burger joint, right, like a shaken burger joint, and she's cooking up human meat of like
as burgers,
right, as burgers. So it's kind of like this gross twist on like a time in America that you think was very wholesome, was very mom and pop, and
Sure.
and her character's turning that on its head. She's a villain who doesn't understand why alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are allowed in America, but recreational drugs aren't. Like, she even has the speech when the guy puts sugar in his coffee, and she's like, that is more likely to kill you than the cocaine and the marijuana and the heroin and everything else that I sell. That is more likely to kill you than any of that. And she's not wrong in it, but of course, like Valentine,
it is an interesting twist.
Right.
But the thing is, like, it doesn't carry any kind of weight. Like for whatever reason, everything that she does and says just you can't quite take seriously, and that's the problem.
But they did the same thing with Valentine, where like you understand that Valentine's a type of person who believes that humanity was a sickness, and the only way to wipe out a sickness is to have a fever. And what is a fever? It's your white blood cells attacking the infection. So make humans attack each other. Whoever's left gets to restart, and the world is healed from it. But they never really explain how his villainous character became a villain. You just know that he's a villain. And that's something that James Bond films and all spy films do. The villain's just the villain. There's no backstory to them. We get a little bit of backstory for Julianne Moore. We get a little bit of
she was some smart girl that just went a little crazy. And
exactly. And that's all you need, I think, for her motivation.
I guess so.
But you're saying that they didn't do enough for her, like that it didn't come to fruition. I don't think any of that needed to come to fruition. I think that like
it's just the way it was written, her character, the way it was just.
I think it was the way it was
or maybe
acted.
It was just shot or acted.
No, I think it's the way it was
like,
acted.
It just didn't come across screen to me.
Yeah,
the way I wanted to.
I think you're thinking more of the way it was acted. I did not enjoy Julianne Moore in this film at all. I enjoyed the character, and I thought that maybe there could have been a better person to play her. That is what it is. And then the resolution to her, is she gets a poison dart and dies. It's just very boring. But I think the worst character moment for me was Whiskey, who was played by Pasquale, who is Oberyn Martell. He comes back to life pretty much, and they explain how people come back to life. So it wasn't bad that he came back to life, but it was pretty obvious setup that he was also a villain.
With Harry,
and he was the mole within the Kingsman, within the Statesman, and when he comes back, his motivations for why he's a villain are so. I mean, I understand that it is.
Yeah.
The reason that he goes against the Statesman is because if Poppy is shut down and all recreational drugs are gone, then the Statesman, whose funding comes from the whiskey that they distill, people would turn to drinking more than they would. So he would stand to gain from the stock market. From it.
That's what didn't make any sense.
Oh, that and his wife and kids were killed by junkies. So therefore,
yeah, it was really pushing it.
It was, but
because a person of his stature would not have gone.
I understand the satirical level of it, where it's like
harshly.
This guy is basically he's a villain who's playing the stock market. I understand that level of it, but I just felt like it came too much at the end of the movie,
but not an agent like that. It just didn't make any kind of sense.
It was just a way to fit one more action.
And he's been a statesman for a while. Like he's like the real leader, the mature one.
Right.
Channing Tatum's character was the one that was the wild card.
He was the Harry.
Had to. Yeah,
he was the Harry.
Right, exactly.
And at the very end, when he comes back and they have a big fight with him, it was just another reason to get another action scene in there. But it was also a reason to show you that Harry wasn't losing it. And Harry came back to life because they have something called Omni Gel, this gel that they can put around your head that'll fill that will basically help your brain relapse to where it was, and it'll heal your damaged brain.
Yeah.
And
Pretty cool.
And Harry comes back, but it does come with a side effect of amnesia. Now, usually you shake the amnesia within a couple hours of coming back to consciousness. Harry, however, did not shake that. He was stuck unconscious in a state of amnesia for
he was just
several
like
years.
off. You know, like he spaces out a little bit, sees butterflies, and then
and then his muscle memory is off, and everything
his aim
like that.
is off. Like he can't fight anymore. It was kind of fun. It was humorous.
So whiskey coming back to life was a way to show you that Harry isn't losing it. He still has all of his facilities and he still has all of his skills. So you know that Harry will make it to the next one, and that he will be a full statesman again, and will be just as formidable as he was in the first Kingsman. Another character that they did a terrible job with, and they only used him in marketing because of his name, Channing Tatum, who plays Tequila. All the statesmen are named after different types of liquor, and of course their Merlin, instead of being Merlin, is ginger ale, who is a soft drink.
The square.
But he got a real big disservice in the film where he's unconscious for 90% of it.
Yeah.
And then they just bring him back at the end, and he basically takes Whiskey's role as the senior agent, and that's it. And the way they basically explain that he gets sick from Poppy's drugs, they're just like, oh, by the way, he's our bad boy too. So he might have taken drugs at some point. He's sick now.
Yeah,
they didn't show him
half-assed.
They didn't show
sure.
him taking drugs.
Nothing.
They didn't get into that level of his character. He's just gone.
I guess just because I don't know, was a little bit of a hothead, a little bit of a little bit of an attitude. Chewing tobacco guy, like whatever. I don't know. I guess I don't know. But obviously they teased for a future sequel.
The third one, right? Because
him all dressed up as a Kingsman.
Because Tequila comes to the UK dressed as a Kingsman.
It was interesting.
Wearing a hat that is very reminiscent of Odd Job from James Bond, and also another character that I think they did a great job developing throughout the film is they continued to develop Eggsy. A lot of what Eggsy does is paying homage to Harry. If you notice in Eggsy's office, in his room with his, in his office where he now lives with, he lives in Harry's old house. He has Harry's old office, and the princess from the first one, the one that gave him anal, which they spent a whole lot of this movie apologizing for that final scene in the first one where the princess gives him anal. People thought that was a terrible, way to end the film. They thought that was a very sexist, which I saw it as satirical more so than overtly sexist. But anyway, his room, if you notice, there's 3 headlines on the back. And in the first one, Harry said he always saves the headlines the day after he saves the world. And, the headlines are always celebrity trash, which is kind of like a satire on our world.
Sure,
where celebrity trash makes headlines. So he has 3 celebrity trash headlines hung up behind him. So now we know that he saved the world at least 3 times before he even gets to this point. Mm-hmm. And Elton John is one of those.
Was missing, yep.
Elton John missing was one of those, and we find out where Elton John is later on in the film. He's at Poppy's compound and
forced to play music,
to perform, but he rebels.
It's very awkward,
and he kicks the crap out of two mercenaries, and he seems to be like this ex machina that just shows up exactly when Eggsy or Harry need him to.
Yeah,
it was just too much Elton John. Like the joke was funny the first 2 times, and then by the time they hit that joke note,
it overstayed its welcome.
It definitely overstayed its welcome.
And he's kind of creepy to look at anyway on screen.
But I mean, you could sit here and you can poke holes at little things like that stuff all day. But I still think that for what this film is, it did a fantastic job of doing what the first one did again and bringing it into a fresh light and doing it new and fresh. Just the saddest thing I can take away from it is we sung the praises of Mark Strong, and bigger spoiler, if you continued listening even after we put up a spoiler warning, Merlin's dead. He sacrifices himself so that Harry and Eggsy can complete the mission.
I think it's safe to say this is dead.
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
Not Colin Firth dead.
There's
Dead.
there's no magic gel or medical procedure that can bring you back from dismemberment after stepping on a landmine.
Yeah.
So,
But good on him. He was finally able to dress up in a nice Kingsman suit.
that's true. Yeah,
He
did.
looked sharp as hell.
And he
Good
had
for
that
him.
nice moment with Halle Berry's ginger ale, where she said, "Don't you ever want to go
did.
out in the field?" And he says, like,
And he sung a nice little tune.
right, but he tells her, he's just like, no, because we have the most important job. But he has been out in the field, and he says, like, oh, you've never been out in the field, and she's like, no, whiskey always turns me down, which is your first hint that whiskey was the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, taking up Merlin's legacy, she gets made into a statesman, and she is going to she's going to replace whiskey in the statesman, and we're left where now the Kingsmen now have to rebuild, and the statesmen have to rebuild, and we're going to get a third film where both their worlds that have now collided will continue to cahoot and work together. Kind of can't wait for it. I think I'm going to enjoy it just as much. If I enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed this one, then I'm looking forward to it.
I think I'm going to enjoy the third one a lot more.
You know nothing about it.
For some odd reason, I feel like the way it's setting itself up for the third movie, I just think I'm going to like that. I don't know. I just think I'm going to like the story continuation a little bit more.
So that's going to do it for Super Movie Brothers tonight. I hope you enjoyed our review of Kingsman. If you've seen the film, please reach out to us on Twitter at Super Movie Pod. Let us know what you thought of it. Let us know if you agree with our scores. Tell Jay how crazy he is for not liking it even a little bit. I mean,
I stand behind it.
And then make sure that you check out the regular full episodes, which are usually released on Saturday afternoons. And then be sure to head over to Twitter, on our Twitter, and vote for our next movie cocktail. The theme this week is sketch comedy movies. So movies that are spawned out of sketch comedy. And up for a vote is Monty Python's The Meaning for Life, Super Troopers, A Night at the Roxbury, and Jay's very favorite, The Coneheads.
You're not supposed to tell the people who picked them.
Well, they only know it's yours, so now you know that won't get voted for.
As
of right now, I posted that several
You did that
hours
on
before
purpose,
this. Yeah,
yeah.
it is dead. It is dead last anyway.
No, it's not. It's second to last.
No one's voting for that movie, Jay. Super Troopers all the way.
It's the best one.
So thanks a lot for listening. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.